Now it's with the greatest joy that I welcome you to the next part of the show, and delighted to right away welcome into Studio One Peter McGuigan from Omeath.
That is correct, Ronan.
And you, Peter, are a man who understands more than most about Omeath. You've done a huge study, or in the midst of doing a huge study of the people of Omeath. Now, tell me what that's all about and why you're doing it.
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, somebody died in Liverpool. A good friend of mine died in Liverpool. And their last wishes was to be buried in Omeath. And I made arrangements for the funeral. And of course, the entourage arrived from Liverpool, cousins and that I had never met. And they asked who was this and who was Lizzie and who was Biddy. And I told them. And this guy, who would be a cousin of mine, he said, "Why didn't you write all this down?" He says, "Because nobody know about it, only you. And when I bring my grandchildren, and that from Liverpool to Omeath to explore the 10-town land, they won't know." So I started computers. And I started to write it first on paper, and then...
Were you new to computers?
I was new to computers. My granddaughter,
wonderful.
Nicola Crummy, she told me how to switch them on and how to switch them on. Now, there's nobody can do anything in the house with it. Right. So I would have run just over 16,000 people on computer.
Wow. Because that's the thing about your part of the world. But I mean, everybody knows everybody.
Well, everybody knows, and the other thing about it, everybody was married into each other.
Wow.
The O'Hanlons, the O'Hagans, and there were so many.
Is that a dangerous enough sort of thing to occur? Maybe they could have been too close.
That's right. That's right. A Cork man said about us, he was a milkman here in the Armagh and Down Dairies, a gentleman called Barney Crossan, who shipped it up here just after 1922 when the border was formed.
Yes.
And he said the people of North Louth and South Armagh were ill-bred.
Ill-bred?
Ill-bred. They were too close, he said. I'll not use the expression.
Well, it's all right. Possibly all right to be ill-bred. It's better to be ill-bred than inbred.
Inbred.
I think that's better.
Yeah.
But listen, you're an Omeath man yourself.
That's right. My
What's
family
your
go back to... Pardon?
What's your history in Omeath?
Well, my history in Omeath is that we've been small farmers, and that time we were fadgies as well.
Fadgies?
Now, fadgie now.
How far, first, before we look at fadgies,
that's right.
How far back do you go?
I go back to about 1776 at Bavin, Omeath.
Bavin,
Omeath, yes. And Bavin, Omeath is one of the 10-town lands in Omeath. Yeah. It lies up towards Ardahi, near the mountain.
Yes.
Ardahi is one of the highest points in Omeath and Corrykitt.
Wow. Yeah. How far back can you go before you lose trace of those early ancestors?
Well, there was a lot of...
Do you know where they're buried, for example?
Well, this is it. We rely on graveyards and we rely on church records, you know. And, of course, we get the GRO, and I'm a frequent visitor to Prony down in Belfast, the public records officer, who's doing absolutely tremendous work. You know, on both sides of the border. It's beautiful. And the National Archives in Dublin.
As you put your lasso of garnering knowledge around Omeath and its environs, what does the exploration tell you about the Omeath character?
The Omeath, they were great entrepreneurs. Looking back at them now. Because if you went in and look at any of the major towns in Ireland, let it be in the beef trade or let it be in the public house trade or anything like that, you found an Omeath man in business. You found them in Portumna in Galway. The McCarthys were there, origin from Omeath. The McCarthys had a shop in Warrenpint. People, your listeners in Warrenpint would remember Mary McCarthy and Mick McCarthy, who had a little vegetable shop there beside where the RUC barracks. Yes, they're long since dead now, Roland. And, of course, buried their last wishes, buried in Omeath. In Omeath. But then, the Fadgies were people who sold, and their first recognition and the first time they were recognised was in Belfast, in West Belfast. They moved out of Omeath, my history tells me, and looking on, just after the famine.
What were they selling?
They were selling cockles, mussels, and the oysters.
Yes.
If we look at the people, and they'll meet people who were in Brighton and those who were in Blackpool,
Liverpool.
Blackpool, you couldn't walk the Golden Mile without bumping into Omeath man in business. The big part of Liverpool, they were there.
And they were selling shellfish and the like.
There was one common denominator that I found in the whole lot, and that was the humble oyster. The Carlingford
For
Loch
loch oyster, not the modern kind of
Not the
Japanese
modern kind.
oyster.
It was there.
Yeah.
That's right, you know.
And it was a big
And
oyster.
It was big. It was
Yeah.
big. It was bigger than, and I have big hands.
It was
and it was bigger
yeah.
than that there, and I did open them. Now, in 1901, the University of Southampton did an exploration on Carlingford Loch on the reason why the oyster was dying. It was the head of oceanography for the UK. It still is. Believe me, if there's any distortion or anything like that there, it's sent there for it to be examined. And it astonished me to see that there was 120 people employed in the oyster business directly in Omeath. Now, can you imagine if we had such an industry today?
Yeah.
You know,
amazing.
Amazing. These
but
people.
Here's the thought. You know, Omeath prospered on seafood.
Yes. Exactly.
And
Omeath
Omeath
That's right.
didn't lose
No, we never.
swathes of people in the famine.
No, we never lost any person during the famine.
You actually fed off the sea.
We fed off the sea.
My goodness.
And the other thing about it is we brought our wares to the likes of Belfast. Belfast was becoming the major, and the shipyard was there, the foundries was there, and the people were moving out of the countryside and going into the cities.
And you know.
That's right. But
sorry, but please continue.
Yeah, these people, I suppose, had a disadvantage. They couldn't speak one word of English.
Yes.
So they communicated just by the wares they had to sell. And in some cases, they were vilified and misunderstood, you know, by a lot of the people in Belfast. You still had that friction that we had down through the years.
But it must have been good at the same time, because herein we see the seeds of the Belfast person's love of Omeath and the flow of holiday people from Belfast to come to Omeath.
We had them for 40, 50 years coming.
Goodness
across. They were
gracious.
travelled by train up into Warrenpint and cross on the boats over to Omeath. And we had 80 jaunting cars at one time. 80. You know, so that was 80 people and 80 families being fed up this tourist industry.
Absolutely. Busy time. But the Fadgies were there, but there was also the Pavies.
The Pavies. Well, the Pavies were different. They sold Suitlands. Suitlands. Suitland was, you go in down to the store and you buy it off the peg suit.
You do.
No,
you do.
That time you went for the tailor. And each person nearly had their own tailor.
Yes.
You know, in the major towns like Newry or Dundalk or Belfast.
There's a Mr. Watson in Newry who was a great tailor. And there's a tailor in and they sold that.
There was 3.5 yards of material to make the suit for the average man. You know. Of course, there's a story told about the Corrie people. The Corrie people, that's the town land of one of the town lands we'll meet, that you could sell them a suit length, and they could make a 3-piece suit out of it and enough to do a shroud. Whether this story is true or not, we don't know.
But the shroud is interesting because they all want to come back to Omeath to be buried.
To be buried.
Do you need to have an Omeath passport to be buried in Omeath?
Well, that's right. Most of the people wanted to be buried in a place called Killicam.
Why?
That's the way. Because that was their origin. This is... No matter where they went to, you know. I'll tell you a story about... My father went out to America. I think God rest him, he's dead now. Another Peter McGuigan.
Is Peter buried?
Peter is buried in Killicam also.
He came back from America?
Yeah, he went out there for a holiday, but all my people went to America. And they left Belfast. There were Fadgies in Belfast, and they went to Chicago and Boston. And are now in all over America, particularly down in Sacramento.
And what sort of business still?
Well, they got away from the Fadgies and the Suitlands, and they joined up to police forces.
Wow.
Like big, strong, and able men.
Bit like yourself.
That's right.
Strong, big man.
Big men. And they joined out there.
So Omeath men are keeping law and order in the United States.
Well, my father was in South Dakota, and of course, he didn't realize the distance in America. So they decided to ring his other uncle up in Chicago, another Paddy McGuigan. And he rang him, and they exchanged pleasantries for a while, and my father said to him, "Paddy," he says, "you never came home." And he said, "Peter, I go home every night."
My gum.
That's right.
Yeah.
He says,
in his dreams,
when I go to bed in my house in Chicago, he says, I walk out of my cottage and I go in down through Bavin and down to Arda in my mind. And he named all the fields, the Tana Hatchla, the Moneywug, the Park, all the fields in Irish. And he says, I wake up the next morning and I'm in Chicago.
My goodness.
And I think that sums it up, Rowan. They never lost their feelings of where they were reared.
But isn't that something
That's
about
right.
us? Like, that's not unique to Omeath.
Yeah.
That's like,
about the character of the
I've been
Irish.
all over. I've been all
That's
over the
right.
world, and I found myself in the middle of the South China Sea,
Yeah.
standing on the monkey island of the
That's
ship
right.
I'm on.
Yeah.
And as it buries the bow and comes up again and tosses the rain and the sea from our face,
Yes.
I'm standing there thinking of the market in Newry, looking forward to getting home.
That's right.
We were
That's
always
right.
sort of way, but looking
That's
back.
right. Yeah. That's right.
The origin of the name Omeath.
Well, the origin of Arafat, a fat man, I think was the origin. I don't have a great lot of Irish, but fat man, Arafat, he was a big man who lived off the sea as well. And Omeath has a lot of history down to a lot of poets, down to Seamus Dal McCortha.
Oh, yes,
the blind, Dal means blind.
Yeah.
And he wrote a lot of stuff. And Pedro Duda, who was a teacher at St. Michael's College, he recorded all this.
Yeah.
Now, he recorded it in Irish, and they're doing a hell of a lot of work now on Omeath, particularly the Meath Historical Society, led by Roisin Mulligan, Francis Mulligan, and Mrs. McKeown there.
Were they the Mulligans of the corner shop?
Of the corner shop.
And the
Paddy
McKeowns
Mulligan.
of the other wee shop?
That's right. Yeah,
Goodness
yes,
gracious.
right.
And I so remember the Mrs. McKeown
That's
Senior,
right. And
lovely old
she's
lady.
the Anne Dobbin McKeown of the Park Hotel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful business people, and they're putting a lot of work into it now and doing a lot of research and getting it up and running.
Yeah. Do you think the park will come back again?
Oh, I don't see why it would not.
Yeah.
We got a big disappointment with the elusive bridge, we call it.
But you're a sensible man. You probably had your doubts.
That's right. I had my doubts about it.
Yeah.
It seemed a lot of expenditure too, but
Especially with the road on
we
the
had a
other.
county councillor in 1920, Paddy McCann, who was in Davy's pub there. He owned that, and he was a kind
As some might have called it Buckley's.
Buckley's. Well, it was Buckley's, yes. Another American, Dublin man who went to America, Patrick Joseph Buckley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So the man was saying to you about, the councillor was saying,
he had proposed a bridge there at Narrow Water in 1920.
yes.
And we're nearly 100 years later, and we're still discussing it.
And it's something that could have brought the two traditions on the island
traditions together.
close.
That's right.
And put to bed a lot of the old animosity and all the
bring
rest of
those
it.
people who are far away from the people of Burn and Wernpint and Grinan into the people of Cornamuckla. We're only
Who would never have thought of taking the trouble to go and go
That's
all the way
right.
around?
That's
Suddenly
right.
there would
That's
be a whole new influx of folk.
new influx, and you would have new plays with different theatres. You'd have football and everything like that.
absolutely.
I didn't mention it to you. The first Gaelic football match played in Ireland was played in Omeath in 1750.
Yes.
In a place called Lennywaven, Bavin Meadow.
Bavin Meadow.
And we celebrated this 2 years ago. The Cuchulainn Gaels and Liam O'Neill, the president of the Gaelic Athletic Association, came down to Omeath, and there he celebrated with us.
My goodness.
Yeah. So we have unlimited history.
And the Rosminians came to you?
The Rosminians came there. We were badly in need of healing, spiritual healing.
Yes, would have been a parcel of rogues.
That's right. Yeah.
In the nicest possible way,
In the
Peter.
nicest possible way. That's
Without a
right.
doubt.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, of course, you go down to the beach.
There's an old saying, if you want to find an honest man in Omeath, bring one with you.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the great memories of the donkey rides on the beach.
Well, the donkey ride was there, and the jaunting car, and the people selling the heather.
The heather?
The heather.
From the mountain?
From the mountain.
By gum, you had more than an ample supply of that.
That's right, we had that. And of course it was illegal. They made it illegal because they were a bit pushy with the thing. But the American soldiers came over there.
Yes.
They were stationed in Ballykinler, just here in County Down, and they would have come up to the chain to Wernpine and crossed at Omeath and crossed at the Ferrywood.
Yeah.
And they would have thrown a person $1 or $2. Big money then. The child was trying there in sixpence for a loaf, and children, and even those children who had boots and shoes, don't wear them when you're down selling heather.
Ah, yeah,
that's right.
That's the Omeath cleverness.
That's the cleverness in them.
Absolutely.
That's the original fadgy in
Well,
them.
I have to ask you this, and it's not unreasonable to ask. With American soldiers coming across on the ferry to meet people in Omeath, including beautiful young colleens of Omeath,
That's right.
would there have been love affairs?
Oh, of course there was. Yes, that's right. There was love affairs. Yes, right.
Maybe an Omeath girl
And we,
ended up
like
in
what I've
America.
mentioned, is we have one or two GI brides
Yes.
who went back and very successful.
So, to Omeath.
Very successful.
to America with.
That's right.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
That's
It
lovely.
would be. I would like to mention, Ronan, before we were the last Gaelic speakers. They had a different dialect than we people. There are a lot of people looking at it now and rehearsing it and finding out how much. The last two Gaelic speakers, most on record, is Anya O'Hanlon from the Slay. She was Anne Dobbin. Was her maiden
Again,
name.
is that Dublin name?
Of the Park Hotel, of that connection, one of the Dublins of Banbridge. They were of that connection. Also a Peter Sloan, who was a school teacher, self-taught school teacher. His first 2 or 3 years teaching was at nights classes in the old Ardahi school, and he taught for free. Not many teachers like that about today.
No.
But there's still one woman alive, and she is in Sacramento. Not
Goodness
Sacramento.
gracious.
San Antonio,
Antonio.
San Antonio in Texas. And she was a student at Ardahi School.
My goodness.
And I spoke with her in Carlingford last year. Sadly, I didn't record it. I didn't have my tape with me.
Yeah.
You're more professional. You would have had that. And she still has her Irish.
In the Omeath dialect.
In the Omeath dialect that she learned almost 89 years ago.
My goodness.
That's right. Now, hopefully she makes it back to Omeath again. She might do. She's getting old and feeble.
Well, I have to ask you as we come to our conclusion, when's the book coming?
I retired from the building trade about 5 or 6 years ago. And since I retired, I never get a minute. I would like a book. I would like to write about these fadgies.
You should.
I would like to write about the people that went away to Blackpool and Boston and carried their trade with them. You know,
They need you to do
that's
it.
right. That's right. There was a famous pub in. Have you heard of in New York? Shenanigans.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
The man who had the oyster bar there was a John O'Hagan. I'll give you a guess where he was from.
There you are.
Ballyunan, Omeath.
Ah, for God's sake.
That's
right. Out at the pier.
Out of the
Ballyunan.
pier. Out of the pier.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. There were also the Carls. The Carls were very rich people who were married into the Cunninghams of Wernpine, and they had big businesses in Liverpool.
My goodness.
Yeah. We had two mature business people, business companies operating in Omeath in the 1920s.
Yes.
Petries of Liverpool in the shellfish business.
Yes.
And Mussels of Liverpool.
Again, the same business.
And that's right. And
Goodness
the Petries were
gracious.
buying turkeys as well in Dundalk and all this here.
My goodness.
Through an agent in Omeath called James Quinn.
Yes.
So we're
Industry.
industry
It
is
was
there.
great.
Talent is there. The entrepreneur is in them.
And now you have the task. You have the task of writing the book.
Yes.
Peter McGuigan from Omeath. God bless you.
It's a pleasure.
God
It's a
love you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll go to California now.
Go to California.